Welcome to Issues. As you know, Issues is a program that deals with the community, and usually we are talking to individuals in the community. Today we're going to talk to someone who lives in Orlando, but a native, a fully born Bermudian, but is in Orlando. Past few weeks we have been looking at success, looking at the ingredients of success, and looking at how the individual achieves success. Today we're talking with Shawn Smith. He is a defense attorney in the Orlando, and Shawn Smith happens to be my son. So we can ask him very, very difficult questions.
Yes, you can.
Welcome, Shawn.
Thank you, Daddy.
What brings you to Bermuda?
I come to Bermuda to celebrate my 40th birthday. Of course, as you have already said, I was born here in Bermuda, and I wanted the opportunity to come back and experience 24th of May because it's been a long time since I've had that chance. I've been back and done cup match, but it's been a long time since I've had a chance to sit down and enjoy, watch the marathon and watch the parade.
Excellent. Now, at what age did you decide that law was the track that you wanted to go?
Well, at a young age, I had a loving mother and father who informed me and told me and directed me that I was going to be an attorney. And so I can remember being in the second and third grade and my parents telling me that I was going to be an attorney. So they instilled in me from a young age that's what they wanted to be.
And that was Bermuda Institute?
I was at Bermuda Institute. That is correct. As I got older, I believe probably about the 11th or 12th grade, I thought about becoming a minister, but my mother quickly put me in line and said that you can be a lawyer and you can also preach on the side. So
and she appreciates you saying that.
So I entered college at Columbia Union College in Tacoma Park, Maryland, with a degree in English and a minor in political science with the endeavor to be a lawyer.
Okay, so it seemed like most of your life through the direction of your parents that you wanted to become an attorney.
That is correct.
So now, after Columbia Union College, but did you graduate from Columbia Union College?
I transferred to Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama, and really it was there that the idea to become an attorney became personal, became real to me as I saw God open doors in that area. As a senior at Oakwood, I had the opportunity to be the senior class president, and I also applied to law school. When I applied to law school, I was accepted into Stetson University College of Law.
Why Stetson?
That's a good question. Stetson has a very good trial advocacy program. In fact, Newsweek ranks them always in number 1 or number 2 when it relates to trial advocacy. And when I use that term, trial advocacy, I'm talking about litigating in the courtroom, being a litigator and practicing in front of a judge and a court. And so I applied to Stetson, and in fact I also applied to University of Florida. Stetson accepted me to begin that fall after I graduated from undergrad. University of Florida accepted me to come and start in the spring semester, but I wanted to go right into law school, so I went to Stetson. Now Stetson is a private school and can be rather expensive. And through my research, I learned that there was a scholarship available to minorities. In fact, the scholarship is called MPLE, which stands for Minority Participation in Legal Education. And what that scholarship does, it pays for all of law school, including your books and tuition, and gives you a stipend as well. At that time, the stipend was about $850 a month. So once I got accepted, the next process now was to find exactly how I was going to pay for this private school. And it was during that time that I was able to see God open doors. In fact, I remember after I sent in the application, I had so much faith that I was looking in my post office box nearly daily to see when I was going to get this letter to say that I had received a scholarship. I remember when the lady called me, when she finally contacted me to say that I had received a scholarship, my response to her was, "What took you so long in contacting me?" So that is there. When I saw God open those doors, it made it clear to me that that was the profession and direction that God was leading.
Let me ask this question. Some time ago, we interviewed Jerome Wilson, and he talked also about how intricate God was in his life and even in his present career. Now, you've mentioned God a couple times. Mm-hmm. So let me ask this. In terms of success, how do you see God playing out in terms of any success that you may have achieved?
I look at that question as trying to define exactly what does success mean and what does success mean to me, especially as it relates to my relationship with God. Well, specifically, I believe that success is not based upon how many houses you have and how much money may be in your bank account, but I believe that success depends on how you are able to help and minister to other people. In fact, when we look at the history of even this world and our society, there are many people who are popular based upon the ways that they helped other people. For example, Dr. Martin Luther King, even Jesus for that matter. We saw how he was ministering to people and how his ministry scanned a whole wide array of areas. There's a song, I believe Mahalia Jackson sings it, says, if my living would not be in vain, if I could do my duty as a Christian ought, if I could bring salvation to a world once wrought, then my living would not be in vain. So I believe success is depending on how you're able to help and minister to other people. In any particular case that I get, my primary objective is to, one, help that individual. And if I can help that individual in whatever way, shape, or form, I deem it to be a success.
Does one need God in their life to be a success?
I believe that God helps you to helps you to be successful.
But does one need God in their life in order to be a success?
Based on my definition, yes. You would need to have God in your life to be successful, because we inherently are selfish beings and we want to do things only for ourselves. I want to make money for myself. I want to build houses for myself. But when you have God in the picture, he allows you to see that life is not about self. It's really about him, and that we need to be unselfish. It's through his love and his death on the cross that allows us to see how sinful we are, and really any good thing that we think we do is really not good without him in our lives.
But again, in terms of success, is there anything wrong with having a house? Is there anything wrong with having lots of money in the bank?
In terms of success?
Yes.
My definition of success doesn't include money in the bank or a house. So you can have a big house, you can have a big car, but for me, that doesn't mean that you are successful.
Okay.
I would deem you successful depending on how many people have you helped, how many people have you even brought to Christ. That's the definition to me of success. There are going to be a lot of rich people that we know are not going to be in heaven.
I mean, when you and I've seen you in action in court. So if you're in court and the prosecuting attorney turns to you and says, "Well, Shawn, how many people did you talk to Christ about? Did you talk to about Christ?" Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen, is he? Is it? He's going to say, "Well, Shawn, your Mercedes, your big house." So is he looking at how many people you have brought to Christ in terms of defining success?
The prosecutor is not going to be looking at my house or my car. The prosecutor is going to know, does this person deal with me in a straightforward, honest, and candid way? Can I trust this attorney when he tells me something? Or do I have to be careful that he's going to lie to me and he's going to lie to the court? Is this an ethical attorney, or is he going to do something that is unethical before the court? That's when I'm dealing with opposing counsel, that's what they're going to be looking at. They're going to deem me reputable and credible based upon how I interact with them. If I have a big house or a big car and I'm lying to the prosecutor, or I'm being mischievous, or I'm even trying to bribe the prosecutor, that's not going to play well at all. So, that's how I would answer that question.
Let's go back to education. Now, I know that the route that folks in England and Britain and even here in Bermuda know that the route that they take is different than the American route. Explain to us, what is the American route to becoming an attorney?
Before you can become an attorney, you have to take 2 steps. First, you need to have an undergraduate degree. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a bachelor's of arts. It could be a bachelor's of science. Some
PE?
type of, even PE, physical education, as long as you have a 4-year degree from an accredited undergraduate school. Then once you complete your your undergraduate degree, you need to apply to law school. And then in your application process for law school, one of the exams that you have to take is what we call the LSAT, a law school admissions test. And when you apply to law school, you're going to send to law school your undergraduate credits and also your law school examination test. And I think you also have to do an essay as a part of your application to the different law schools. And so those are things they look at to determine whether or not they accept you into law school. Once you get into law school traditionally is a 3-year process. And you often hear the term 1L, 2L, and 3L to determine exactly where you are in your law school career. For me, it took me 2.5 years because I did law school during the summer as well. So if you're a traditional student that takes your courses from in the fall of August and in the spring and January, then it's going to take you 3 years. Now, there are also some law school programs, if you're an adult and you're working, that they have night school, so you can go to law school at night. When you do that, it's going to take you a little bit longer to complete rather than the 3 or 2.5 years.
And then after law school, then what?
Once you complete law school, you have to take the infamous exam called the bar exam. How many times did you take the bar? I took the bar exam 1 time. And once you pass the bar exam, and each particular state has a different number of which you need to pass in order to qualify to pass the bar in that particular state. And once you pass the bar, then you're eligible to practice in the state in which you pass the bar.
You practice in what state?
I practice in the state of Florida. So I have a license to practice law in any county or city within the state of Florida.
Okay. Now, you are a defense attorney.
Yes.
What made you choose defense? And you know, I tease you and say all your clients are guilty. But what made you choose that branch of law?
Well, as a defense attorney, the bigger umbrella that falls under is a criminal attorney. Before I was a defense attorney, I practiced as a prosecutor for the state of Florida, specifically in Pinellas County, for about 5 years. And I transitioned into the state attorney's office because during my last year of law school, I did what we call a prosecution clinic, where I was able to try cases and prosecute juveniles under the guidance of a licensed or barred attorney in the state attorney's office. And so while doing that, I enjoyed the opportunity to be in the courtroom and to litigate. So I went and I was a prosecutor in that same office for 5 years. And then after prosecuting, I then transitioned to the other side of criminal law, which is becoming a defense attorney, where I defend those who have been accused of committing crimes.
Okay. And is there an example you could share with us in terms of an interesting case? And I know when Mr. Wilson was there, I didn't want to ask him any of that because he practices here in Bermuda. but you're in Orlando. Is there any interesting case that you could share with us in terms of defining or showing what defense attorneys do?
Well, as you like to say, Daddy, many of my clients, if not most of my clients, you believe are guilty.
Yes.
I will give an example of a case where my client did not have a good case. He was charged with, I think, about 6 or 7 different crimes, to include robbery with a firearm, carjacking, burglary, fleeing and eluding. And so fleeing and eluding, that is when an officer is trying to pull you over with their license sirens on and you refuse to pull over. And when I inherited the case, he was looking at, the prosecution had offered him 12 years in prison. This was a young man who, when I took the case, I said, this is an opportunity for me to not only help him with his criminal matter, but also help him in his personal life as well, to maybe get him on the right track. We're
going to ask you to stop right there. We're going to take a break. We'll follow up and hear the ending of this case, but we'll be right back. Welcome. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been looking at what is success. We've had a few people on, and we've asked them their definition of success. We're talking with Shawn Smith, who happens to be an attorney in Orlando, and he was talking to us and was really integrating God in terms of his success. Right now, he's telling us, sharing with us one of his experience as a defense attorney.
And as I was explaining, he was looking at 12 years in the Department of Corrections. Once I got the case, the first thing I told the families that I wanted to take each case individually to see how strong the state's case is. One of the things that we as defense attorneys do is that it's the state's responsibility, or the prosecution's responsibility, to prove their charge beyond a reasonable doubt. So before my client admits or takes a plea to anything, our job is to make sure that the state has enough evidence in order to do that. And when they don't have the evidence to do that, that shows a weakness in their case, and that gives us as defense attorneys an opportunity for negotiation or even possibly an all-out dismissal if their case is weak enough. But being that the state was coming at my client with this 12-year sentence, the first thing we wanted to do was take a look at each case. So in doing that, I took what we call depositions, meaning I questioned many of the witnesses involved in each of the state's cases. In one of the cases, which was an aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer, the state had to prove that my client intended to hit this law enforcement officer. In questioning the officer admitted, listen, I don't think your client was trying to hit me, he was just trying to get away. So right there showed that a crucial element that the state needed in order to prove that charge was missing. So that gave me some negotiation room. In another case, my client was charged with burglary of a vehicle. In this vehicle, there was no eyewitnesses to show that my client was ever in the car or ever drove the car away. The only thing that they had was fingerprints, and these fingerprints were outside the car, and the vehicle was found in a public place. So the defense there could be that my client was walking and saw the car and put his hands on the car outside of the car. So there it showed again that there were some weaknesses in the defense case. The strongest case that the state had was a carjacking case. In this case, the witnesses came in and testified that they saw my client come out of a vehicle and he had a firearm and he stole the vehicle along with other items. Once I took all the depositions, I had an opportunity to sit down and ask my client, listen, what do you want? What type of sentence would you be happy with? He told me, listen, I'm looking at 12 years. If you can get me 2 years in prison followed by 6 years in probation, that would make me happy. At first, in looking at the facts and looking at what they offered him, I didn't think that that would be a possibility. But I took the time and I met with the prosecutor. We sat down in the office and I told him the weaknesses of the case, and of course he followed with the strengths of the cases that he thought he had. And the original offer that he gave my client was 5 years in prison. And we had worked it down from about 12 to 5. So I went back and before I went and talked to him, I said, listen, I don't know if my client's going to want a prison sentence. He might want some, probation as well. So I went back and talked to my client. He said, listen, if you can get me 4 years in prison followed by 4 years of probation, I would take it. I went back to the state and I made that counter offer to them, and they said, listen, we will allow your client to plead to 4 years in prison followed by 4 years of probation if he testifies against the co-defendants in the case. Went back to my client. He was happy. Of course, he took it. So in terms of success, although originally he was looking at 12 years, and we were able to work his case down to 4 years of prison followed by 4 years of probation, he was happy and I was happy, and I consider that case to be a success, even though you, Daddy, will feel that, hey, listen, your client was guilty anyway.
Let me ask you, let's go back and look at success. Is success attainable for everyone?
Definitely. Definitely. A quote I heard, you may recognize this quote, is that success depends on how you make use of your opportunities. Mm-hmm. And what I try to do for my clients is give them an opportunity to change, give them an opportunity to look at this situation as just a speed bump rather than a stumbling block. And I look at the opportunities provided to me in representing these individuals to change their life. So success is definitely unattainable by anyone. And I know a lot of people feel discouraged by their lot in life or their situations in life. But remember, everyone's going to be provided an opportunity, whether it's an opportunity to go to school, to get a better education. You have the opportunity of time. What are you going to do with that time? We know that idle time is a devil's workshop, but are you using your time wisely? Are you, reading? Reading maketh a wise man, I once heard from a wise individual. Are you using that time to read and become better educated? So if we can take use of that opportunity that we have, then we indeed can be successful.
Let's look at failure a little bit. Can failure in any regards lead to success?
Definitely. What failure allows you to do is see the weaknesses in your character, the weaknesses in your work ethic. And so when you realize where you're weak, you now have an opportunity to make that area strong, whether it's seeking counsel to get advice or help in that area, whether it's not making the same mistake over and over again. I can remember a case that I had as a prosecutor where the defense attorney had filed what we call a motion to suppress, saying that the officer stopped this individual without permission. And there was a video involved in that stop that as a prosecutor I did not order, but the defense attorney ordered. And when we came to that motion, the defense attorney presented that video. Even though that video was able to be helpful to the state or the police in that particular endeavor, I never will forget what he said. Listen, he told me that you need to remember to order the videos in these particular cases. And so ever since that time, ever since that day, I always remember that case, and I always remember to order a video as evidence in whatever case I may have.
Okay. Let me go back and let's look at your academic careers. What kind of grades did you make?
In what? In elementary school, high school, or in college?
Generally speaking.
In elementary school, during my elementary or grammar school years, my parents always told me that I could not get any C's. And so there were some times, I can remember I believe it was third grade, that I got 2 D's. I think maybe that was the worst grade.
You got it in third grade?
I think it was third grade. Wow. I got 2 D's.
And I remember that.
And I remember when I either got a C or a D, that there was many restrictions put on me. I had TV restrictions. I had, playtime restrictions. I remember a situation very vividly. This is when we were living in Orlando, when I had gotten a C, and my parents told me, in fact, Daddy, you and Mommy told me, listen, anytime you go to the next class, you need to get your teacher to sign your homework, or not homework, but assignment. And so I was leaving from one class to the other class, and I went and got my teacher to sign my assignment. And when I got to the next class, the teacher had already began the quiz for that time. And I missed the first question of the quiz. And I think it was 10 questions, and I knew I got 2 through 10 correct. But I wasn't there to catch the first question because I was getting my other teacher signing off on my homework. And so as the assignments were being handed to the teacher, I looked at a friend's answer for number 1, and I wrote that answer in. And I remember the teacher asking the person who was grading on paper, what answer does he have for number 1? And the teacher said, well, you're going to miss you're going to get a 0 on the whole quiz. And I was hurt. I was broken. I went home and I told my parents what happened, and my parents called the teacher and said, how could you let this happen? And the teacher explained to them that, listen, he cheated on the quiz, so therefore he's going to get a 0. But I was hurt and I was crying because I thought I was trying to do what was right, trying to get my assignment corrected, and I knew the answers, but unfortunately I got a 0 in that class.
Let me ask this question. What role do you think, maybe not just in your life, but in general, what role do parents play in the lives of their children in terms of helping them to be successful?
Well, in my experience, I can't speak for everyone's experience, but my parents were the ones who pushed me and drove me, especially when it came to education. Both of my parents are educators, and they made it important in my life that I have a good education, that I just not stop at high school or just not stop at college, but move forward all the way through to law school. But not only that, but that I apply myself and that I do the best work that I can do. So, you know, by the time I got to my junior and senior year in high school, I was making A's and B's. In college, I was making A's and B's. And then in law school, I was making good grades as well. But that was based upon the foundation that was laid for me in my grammar years of my parents pushing me. Mm-hmm. So that was very helpful.
You mentioned Oakwood University and being the president of the class. In terms of success, when one becomes an adult and they look back in their years of growing up, generally speaking, their years, can you see different successes in their life? Or is it possible that someone all through their early years, elementary school, high school, and even college, that they may not have been all that successful, but later on in life they become successful? You know, we've spoken with some individuals on this program in terms of success, and we can see in their early lives where they have been successful. So is that the trend for one who achieves success?
The trend really, and this goes back to God, is finding out what God has planned for you. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you." And he's given each of us talents. There are some individuals who their talent is not going to school and sitting down and being about academia. You know, they're good with their hands. And I'm not. You know, they could be electrical problem or plumbing problem or construction problem that I know I can't even touch. I can't fix it. I would not be successful in that area. And they can do that and go there. So, you know, their grades in schools may be C's and D's, and it may not be B's and A's. And that's because, you know, during that time, they're not in the specific area which God wants them to be. But once they step into that environment, and I have friends like that who, once they've had the opportunity to become what it is that God has called them to be, that they are successful. So the key in being successful is finding out what God has called you to do and making sure you step in that area and that arena.
Mm-hmm. You are a Christian, so I can understand the perspective where you're coming from. But is the same true for those who are non-Christians in terms of the achievement of success?
Definitely. As a Christian, we look to find out where our talents lie a lot by calling on God and asking Him to reveal that to us. There are some individuals who they can see already. They can see what they do and know what they like already and be successful in that. They don't need to hear maybe a word from God saying, I want you to do this or I want you to do that. But they can tell by their own intuition, where their talents lie and make sure that they move in that particular direction. But again, as I said from the beginning, not only success is not only doing well in a particular arena, but it's also using your talents to help other individuals, using your talents to make other people better. And so that's the crucial part where God needs to be in their life so that they can not be selfish with the talents that they have, but be unselfish and help and minister to other people.
Last question, we have 30 seconds. Must one make good grades, A's and B's, in order to achieve success?
No. When we elaborate on that, I only have 30 seconds.
Yeah, take 30 seconds.
Grades only test the subjects that are given in school. And a lot of people are experts or are great in subjects that are not involved in school. And if I'm a good construction worker, if I'm good with my hands or a plumber, I may get an F in history because I don't understand history, or I may get a D in English or a C in writing, but that doesn't mean I'm not successful. If you give me a plum, or not a plum, but something in order that I could be a good plumber, a hammer or a nail or a screwdriver, then I can go to work, I can go to town, and you'll see me really achieve and be prosperous.
We've been talking with Shawn Smith, a defense attorney in Orlando, and we've been looking at the area of success, and we've seen many ingredients of success. One of the things that we've learned over the weeks in terms of looking at success, while grades are important and they are helpful, it does not determine whether you will be a success or failure. We even found out that even sometimes failure is good to help to catapult you onto success. And so we will continue to look at this area of success, and we hope you will join us next time.